This is Lesson 14. When you're ready to publish your final movie, you're going to need to go in and create some settings and also choose the file formats that you'd like to publish. This is a process you're going to repeat for every single movie when you're ready to publish it, and chances are you may use the same settings and formats across a number of different movies. To save yourself some time and effort, you can actually store these settings in a custom published profile. To get started, let's go ahead and open up the fl14_video.fla lesson file. And let's take a look at this banner file for a second, which is actually used in some of the written exercises. Here, we're going to use this as the basis for creating a new custom published profile. We can then apply those same settings within our profile to other movies later on. Whenever we're ready to publish our final movie, our first step is to go to the Publish Settings dialog box. To do this, let's go up to the File menu and choose Publish Settings. And this is going to open up our Publish Settings dialog box here. And you'll see by default there's actually one profile that's always standing. This is known as the default profile. And as you add other profiles, they'll appear under this drop-down menu. Currently, we don't have any other profiles than default, but we're going to change that by creating our first custom published profile. To do this, before we do anything else, let's go over to the right and let's click on the Create New Profile button. And that opens up the Create New Profile dialog box. And from here, we can name our profile, and everything we do forward will be stored under this new profile name. So let's go ahead and call this Flash CS5 Digital Classroom. And click OK. So now you'll see that displays as our current profile, and everything that we create from this point on will be saved in that profile. First, we need to choose the formats or file formats that are going to be published when we actually go through the publish process. By default, we'll see that Flash and HTML are already checked off. This creates the default SWF or compressed Flash movie and accompanying web page, HTML file, that are necessary for displaying our movie in a web browser. However, we may want to add some additional formats onto this. We'll see that we can actually generate static images from our movie in one of the 3 web-friendly file formats, or we can create standalone projectors for Windows and Macintosh platforms. For now, we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to assume that we also want a static version of our movie as a JPEG that we can use for some other purpose later on. So I'm going to go ahead and check this option off. And what you'll see is that as I do that, a JPEG tab pops up over here on the top. We're going to visit this later on to dial in settings for that specific format. But first, we need to set up settings for our Flash and HTML formats as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on the Flash tab. And from here, we're going to just create some basic settings. There's a number of different options here that we can choose, which you can explore on your own. But for now, we want to keep it simple and really focus on the process of actually creating this profile. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our player and script versions are exactly what we need. In this case, we'll leave the default, which is Flash Player 10, the latest version, and ActionScript 3. Now, one thing we may want to do differently is we may want to actually save some file size on our final SWF. And to do this, we can actually bring down the JPEG quality. This slider controls the overall compression of any bitmaps that we've imported into our movie. And what we can do from here is either raise this slider, and that'll give us better quality bitmaps inside of our movie, but it will actually increase the overall file size. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to bring it down a little bit to 60. This keeps us at a fairly good compression quality, and it'll give us some pretty good bitmap image quality, but it'll save us on file size. Now, another thing we're going to do is we're going to uncheck this Include Hidden Layers checkbox. This ensures that any layers that we have currently hidden in our FLA file will not actually get published into our final SWF. Now, again, there's a number of options we can focus on here at a later point, but we're going to move on for now to the HTML tab. Under the HTML tab, we can dial in settings for the web page or HTML file that's going to be generated that accompanies and contains our SWF file. So from here, what I may want to do is add some Flash detection in here, and that generates some additional files that will actually prompt my user to download the latest version of the Flash plugin if they don't have it. That's always a good idea. What I may also want to do is make sure that my movie is not set to loop for playback. I'd rather let my movie control that and not the page itself. So I'm going to uncheck that option. Now keep in mind that based on the last settings that you dialed in here, you may see some different things checked on and off. So for now, just make sure what you're doing matches up with what you see here in the video. We're going to leave all of these other settings as is, and now we're going to move on to the final tab, which is the JPEG tab. And since we chose to publish a JPEG, we can also dial in settings for that as well. And you'll see it's far simpler here. It's just dimensions, and of course we want to keep this to match our final movie. If for some reason we want to generate a different size, we could uncheck this and customize the output dimensions. But for now, let's keep it simple. Now you'll see we also have a quality slider here, just like we did on the Flash tab. But this is different because this will determine the quality of our final JPEG and doesn't affect our Flash movie. So it's actually similar concept, but two different things. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to dial this one up to about 90. This way I know that whatever JPEG is created during the publish process will be at pretty much the highest quality possible. So now what you've set up here is your own custom publish profile. And this profile appears over here in the top. We could always switch back to the default profile or any other profiles that we've saved previously just by clicking on this drop-down menu and choosing a different option. You'll see that resets it back to some of the default options we had. But if we decide later on that we have another movie open and we want to jump back to this, or we want to just set it for this movie, we can go back and you'll see it actually snaps back to all the settings that we saved and that we chose during this process. Now, what's nice about published profiles is that they're actually stored at the application level, meaning they're not stored or specific to this FLA file. So if I open another FLA file later on, I can always apply these exact same published settings to that file as well, or any number of other FLA files down the line. So you don't have to worry that this is going to only appear for this specific file. Now, another nice little bonus is if you decide you want to share this, and for instance, you have a colleague working on a computer also using Flash CS5, and you want to pass on your published settings to him or her and save them a little bit of time, you can actually export this profile. And you can do that right over here. You'll see we have the Import Export Profile button. So say I want to create this profile as a preset that someone else can load into their installation of Flash CS5. We can do that fairly easily. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to choose Export. Now you'll see what this does is this opens up the export profile dialog box, and I can save this. It's basically just an XML file that saves all my settings. So it's easy to transport and it can be read by any other version of Flash CS5. And what we're going to do is we're going to store that into the published profiles folder, which is part of your default installation. But you can also save this pretty much anywhere. I may decide that I want to save this into my lesson folder, which I can do. So here I'm going to switch to my FL14 lessons folder, where my original FLA is, and I'm going to save this in there. So now I've exported my profile as an XML file, and I can email that XML file or give it to somebody on a jump drive or whatever it happens to be. Now they can go ahead and using that exact same button in the Publish Settings dialog box can import that profile. And you'll see that we can select any profile that we've created previously and we can import it directly into our environment, like this profile I've created previously called Fred's Publish Profile. So as we can see here, published profiles can definitely save a lot of time, especially if you tend to apply the same settings over and over again to a number of movies. Using import and export, you can also share your profiles with colleagues or friends or whoever happens to be working in Flash CS5 and needs a little bit of help. This also ensures consistency across the life of a project if you and a number of colleagues are working on related files, but all need to make sure you're publishing the same exact files at the same settings.